2024 Taiwan's newest horror film, The Ghost and the Furious Jin Song Attacks, features the famous haunted mansion. It is said that a fire broke out in this residential building in the 80s, resulting in a number of injuries in 300 and the deaths of 19. What is even more disturbing for the cats is that ever since then, there has been a fatality in the building almost every year, and over time, the place became the most haunted house in Taipei. The story began when a delivery boy from Shock and Awe came to the building to deliver his food. Since the building was already haunted, he didn't dare to go in and told the tenants to go downstairs to get their food. But even though he had been so careful, he still couldn't escape from the curse of the haunted house. A figure fell from the building, killing the delivery boy. The scene was horrific, and when everyone's attention was drawn by the jumping incident, Peggy, who was wearing a windbreaker, was in a hurry to get out. While everyone's attention was drawn to the jump, Peggy, dressed in a trench coat, kept watching the building's folding sound, and saw a female ghost standing at the end of the window. He reached the building's corridor, hand on his sword, drawing talismans in the air and reciting incantations, hoping to aid the dead souls. What Pei Zhi didn't realize was that the building's security guards had already witnessed this. They guessed Pei Zhi was a ghost hunter and quickly left the control room. One guard, with his phone camera ready, sneakily followed Pei Zhi. However, his clumsy tracking led him to accidentally kick a vase at Pei Zhi's doorway. Pei Zhi then caught him and pulled him into the room, where the security guard found himself detained. If you think of filming a movie in such a place, forget it. Despite warnings, Xiao Jun didn't hold back. He was Pei Zhi's street fighting partner and came to his brother's house as a security guard to find writing inspiration, hoping Pei Zhi would collaborate with him. But Pei Zhi had no interest in his Netflix writing dream and simply expelled him. She just kicked him out. No. Xiao Quan, in despair, lay on the doorstep, offering to share his manuscript money. Pei Zhi, hearing this, changed his mind. "I'll bully you," he said. To create art, Xiao Quan agreed to the deal. Keeping his word, he shared his story with his enemy. He took Xiao Quan, went up the elevator, and pressed the 4th floor. Why press it? So it won't happen. Let's meet. The 4th floor had a fire years ago. Since then, no one pressed that button. Peggy could enter because she knew the victims, and the arsonist was her mother. She told Xiao Quan that 20 years ago, this was a pleasure house, and her mother was in charge. Her mother never revealed the truth, but they were always close. Upon discovering that her mother had burned herself, the young configuration couldn't bring herself to accept this harsh reality. Driven by the desire to see her mother once more and uncover the truth behind the incident, she pledged to devote her life to the gods. Her unwavering dedication deeply moved the master of the mythos, who decided to take her on as his disciple. In the end, he left him behind and embarked on a journey to find him. When a single mother in the Konggang building found her daughter awake at night, she went to the window and stepped on a laundry can. She hurried to help her daughter to bed, but her precious daughter transformed into a frightening little boy. "You're not my mother, you're not my mother, you're not my mother." As the boy pressed her, Pei Zhi appeared, chanted a mantra with one hand, and swung her fist at the boy, instantly vanquishing the ghost. The ghost was expelled from the girl, and Pei Zhi gave the neighbor a protective spell. Before leaving, he quietly signaled to the air to lead the ghosts out. Pei Zhi realized upon entering that the boy wasn't an evil spirit, but a fire victim. Through conversation, she learned the boy's mother sold junk, reminding her of an old woman who lived in a garage downstairs and had been in a fire. It turned out to be the boy's mother, who survived by going on a diet, but her son wasn't as fortunate. Both longed to reunite, and Pei's mirror made it possible. The boy chose to reincarnate after his wish was fulfilled. Although this was resolved, other odd events unfolded. First, Xiao Quan noticed some new lines in his novel, stating, "A woman in red will give 21 a good time." Meanwhile, Pei Zhi hears her mother's call in her sleep. She wakes up confused, as her mother's ghost seemed to avoid her since she moved here, yet now warns her to stay away. Puzzled, Pei Zhi visits the temple seeking answers from the master. He explains that he has helped the victims' souls cross over, but when her mother's ghost appeared, she was still in the temple. When her mother's soul showed up. However, as the puzzle still seemed to contain a mass of evil grievances, the master, upon learning of the situation, foresaw that he would be in danger. He handed him the rosary beads he had with him, reminding him not to take them off. As luck would have it, while he was away, another bizarre incident occurred in the building. Xiao Jun's horror book automatically appeared again, with a few lines of text stating that a working-class man who had no money to pay the rent would be bullied by his landlord. The next moment, Yiting, who had just returned from work, was almost assaulted by the landlord at the door of her house. The landlord thought he had been discovered, so he pulled up his trousers and ran away. Before leaving, he threatened to evict Yiting if she didn't pay the rent. Yiting, who was depressed, crouched on the ground without realizing that a red-clad ghost was coming from behind. When the landlord went downstairs and was about to leave in his car, he saw Yiting waving to her. The old sex fiend thought the girl had changed her mind and immediately headed for the door of her house. She ran to the man's house, but just as she reached the middle of the street, she was knocked down by a fast-moving car. Yiting had been possessed by the ghost in red, and under her control, she went to the 4th floor, and went to the innermost room, where she was about to open an old refrigerator. But a black cat flashed in front of Yiting, and she fainted immediately. But just as she reached the door, she was confronted by the red-clothed female ghost, the arrow ghost, and Yiting rushed towards the elevator in a frenzy, but when the elevator opened, she bumped into Zhu Ji, who was rushing back from the temple, and in her haste, she thought that Zhu Ji was a ghost and fainted on the spot. However, when she was awakened by Pei Xi's incantation, she had forgotten all about what happened. Pei Xi then decided to use the jigsaw puzzle to hypnotize her, and helped her to recount the story of what had happened to her, but as the jigsaw puzzle was on the top of the screen, she had to use the jigsaw to hypnotize her, but she could not do that, and she had no choice but to use the spells. At that moment, Pei Xi suddenly realized that the contents were far too abstract, and Pei Xi didn't truly understand what it actually meant. So, after sending Yiting away, she decided to go to the roof of the building to clear her mind. However, just then, a perplexed Xiao Jun finally witnessed the bizarre scene of words automatically appearing on the computer screen, indicating that there would be a fatal incident on the top floor. Xiao Jun hurriedly rushed towards the rooftop, and Pei Xi, who was standing up there at the same time, suddenly encountered a ghostly woman dressed in red in the middle of the path. The ghost flew towards her, and Pei Xi saw the ghost in red. She managed to dodge the attack, but realized the ghost was now standing behind her. When she turned around, she was unexpectedly thrown up by a stranger, and as he raised a bamboo pole to harm Pei Xi, Xiaoko came to her rescue. When the man couldn't overpower Xiaoko, he fled downstairs, with both of them in pursuit. It was only after they chased him into his house that Pei Xi realized the truth behind the attack she had endured. But she doesn't comprehend that her own mother, along with the man's parents and a cat he cherished, also perished in that devastating fire. This is precisely why she finds herself under the control of the female ghost, who has harbored a desire to kill Matchmaker for a long time. However, the most crucial matter at this moment is to uncover the identity of this female ghost and understand why she has set her sights on Matchmaker. Then, after observing Yiting's puzzle, Xiaokuan manages to decipher its significance, realizing that the puzzle portrays a woman and a square space. She recalled that when she was gathering information about the fire, she had come across a tip indicating that although there were 20 bodies found at the fire scene, one of them was a woman discovered in the freezer, having died long before the fire occurred. So, why didn't the police acknowledge this? Did they not want to add another unsolvable murder case to their records? Upon learning this, Pei Xi finally understood that the woman must have died unjustly, which is why she transformed into a ghost. Nevertheless, she still couldn't grasp why this particular person was targeting her. She sensed something unusual and looked up, only to discover a ghost was possessing her. The spirit claimed to be Pei Xi's mother, saying she would take her away. Yet, Pei Xi felt something was amiss and questioned what was on the palm of her left hand. The ghost replied it was a birthmark. However, Pei Xi asserted that the birthmark was actually on her right hand, declaring, "You're not my mother." Upon waking, he found himself embraced by the young ruler, clearly having been possessed by a ghost once more. When she doubted the ghost, she extended her left hand and unveiled a secret known only to mother and daughter. It was a symbol of Wawa, familiar to her for a long time with Tomo, revealing that both mother and daughter had birthmarks on their palms. Yet, she was left puzzled. Peggy's mother finally told her the truth about events from 2 decades ago. Back then, Peggy's mother, Zhang Xiaocheng, and Li Mei were close like sisters. Li Mei wasn't running a business due to lacking customer service skills. To help her, Zhang stepped in. She didn't expect the customer, a pervert, to assault Li Mei repeatedly. Li Mei defended herself by kicking him. The boss, upon learning this, forced her onto the bed and assaulted her again. Seeking help, Li Mei found no support. Even Zhang Xiaocheng was too scared to oppose the boss. She instructed Li Mei to close the door and left her alone. Li Mei was then dragged back to the room and tortured once more. Zhang Xiaobing heard her cries, lying helplessly on the floor, ceasing to drink and worry, while touching a wax candle in her stomach. At that moment, he wasn't aware that Li Mei would be beaten to death by the boss's corpse after being dragged back. However, to the boss, the prostitute's life was insignificant, whether there was one more or less didn't matter. So, he packed Li Mei's corpse and stuffed her into the freezer. But when he closed her eyes, a flash appeared, and he saw Li Mei's corpse repeatedly. When he closed Li Mei's eyes, he turned around, and her eyes opened again. The terrified boss covered his eyes with a red cloth. Unbeknownst to him, Li Mei had become a ghost, unjustly killed, whose vengeance rekindled the candles Zhang Xiaobing had touched, igniting the carpet. By the time he awoke, the fire had spread throughout the room, growing larger and larger, burning 19 people to death. Li Mei, having no one else, was also consumed by the flames. Beauty, because no one was there. For the past 20 years, even though she became a ghost, she was trapped in the freezer, releasing her power occasionally to harm innocent people. As Pei Zhi realized the truth, Li Mei's ghost focused on the single mom upstairs, appearing on the computer screen during a live broadcast, and a hand reached out to grab her head. Pei Zhi rushed out and followed to the house, with her mom following. Hearing screams upstairs, Pei Zhi ran to the 4th floor, but was too late. Li Mei had taken over the single mom's body, opened the freezer, and released her evil soul. She cast a spell to send Xiaojun flying, then pinned Pei Zhi against the wall before she could use her rosary beads. Li Mei. She told Li Mei that everyone in their line of work had his or her own pains, and that her pains were the allocation of a place for her daughter, so that she wouldn't be harassed by the highwayman, but she didn't realize that her weakness would lead to the death of her sister. After hearing Zhang Xiaocheng's explanation, Li Mei thought of their sisterhood, and decided to let go of her obsession of the past 2 years, but over the past 2 decades, she'd killed too many people, and was burned in a night fire. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaoqing decided that she'd rather give up her chance to be reincarnated than abandon her sister, so she embraced Li Mei and burned with her in the night fire, and the 2 ghosts were eventually reduced to ashes. Since then, there have been no more strange deaths in this building. That's all for today's story. I'm Yasser Arafat, subscribe for more interesting horror videos. Let's see you next time.